I identify myself as a member of the Caucasian or white race. I do not base my idea of race on a biological standpoint, but rather have determined myself to be a member of this race based on historical context and my family considering myself to be Caucasian, in addition to the social definition of it, which I fit into, which includes people that possess white skin, typically of European descent. The white race, as I currently understand, holds the majority of wealth and power within the United States and has created a society which not only creates and reinforces racism, but also it tries to enforce the white race's supremacy, power, and wealth over other races. The white race, while it has done much, has been relying on many terrible things to accomplish what it has done, including the use of slavery to build up an empire, in addition to a great deal of wealth, discriminating against others to ensure our status in society does not change, as seen on pages 14 and 15 in the textbook through the creation of the slave codes, the use of immigrants as a source of cheap labor to build up much of America's infrastructure, such as the railroads to the West, in addition to subjecting these men that worked here to terrible conditions. We have also used many members of minority races in terrible experiments to try and find cures for our disease and ailments, oftentimes without their consent, as seen on pages 252 to 254 of the text. Today, the white race tends to use its power to make sure that it does not shift away from us, in addition to ensuring that we have access to the most resources possible through the use of discrimination and inequality in our society. To summarize my understanding of the white race, it is that we are the race that has risen to the top through crime and torture, which is still going on even in today's society, which both loathes and embraces racism, often at the same time. My personal history with my race started out with me thinking little to nothing of it when I first learned about the concept of the white race back when I was studying state-mandated testing in school. It was first introduced to the concept when I had to list my race on a test. This was because up until this point I had relatively little exposure to the idea of race due to me living in a primarily white area and simply not having cared about it before. From there, I started to learn more and more about the white race and what it has done throughout the various history courses I took during my time in high school, as well as during my time in college. During this process, I found out many things I could be proud about my race for having doing, such as putting a man on the moon, as well as learning about the many crimes that my race has committed, which at times has led me to loathing the race that I belong to, such as slavery. I suppose overall the reason my view has changed throughout life is as I have come to learn all about the negative things we have done as a race, which is quite similar to my views of humanity as a whole, with my views becoming much more negative as I learned all about the crimes we have committed in the past and the potential we have to commit even more crimes. An identity that I do have that is somewhat aligned with my race due to stereotypes that I found while researching stereotypes that I saw in last week's video, such as the successful .com millionaire, is that of a computer expert. While this stereotype has become applicable to many other races, it is still primarily associated with whites due to the fact that many of the original tech industry leaders and giants, such as Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, were white in addition to being very prominent figures in society. As for how people with similar identities to me, my coworkers currently, reinforce my identity, the first way that they help to support my identity is the fact that the vast majority of them are white, with only one African American working in the computer repair shop that I am currently employed at. This African American coworker of mine often challenges my identity, however, as a white computer expert, simply because he's the most knowledgeable and experienced coworker I have. This is the result of the fact that he spent roughly 15 years working with computers compared to the rest of us, having 4 to 5 years of experience at most on working at computers. Whereas I might struggle to solve a problem sometimes, he oftentimes will be able to solve such problems in only a few minutes. He oftentimes makes me question if I am actually a computer expert and leads me to wondering if he is a true computer expert, since from my knowledge as compared to his, I am but an amateur. Moving on, the first module to have concepts that had a significant impact on me was Module 2. This module presented to me the idea that not only was our society built on thwarting racism and inequality through the use of structural racism, systematic racism, institutional racism, and racial microaggressions, but that rights were deliberately ignoring the racism going on, blaming on other things through the use of colorblind racism. This is because this chapter This module is important to me because it helped me realize that not only was our society built in order to promote discrimination and inequality, but that I myself was guilty of ignoring it and instead was misdiagnosing the problems that existed. As a result of this, I realized that I was promoting racism and needed to look far more closely at the issues and develop a better understanding of what was happening in society to avoid doing so. An additional set of concepts that had a dramatic impact on me can be found in Module 3, specifically found in Chapter 4. Many examples of stereotypes, such as the concept of the mammy found on pages 97, the dragon lady found on pages 99, and the stereotypes of Latinos being thugs and criminals as shown through the use of controlling images, as indicated on page 109, all have had a dramatic impact on me. By understanding what the stereotypes do to me and affect how I think, I was able to realize that not only had they been leading me to subconsciously avoiding many minority race members in public because I considered them to be threats, but it also helped me to realize that I was using stereotypes to discriminate against others based on appearance, and I was able to realize I was making assumptions against many other people, which simply were not true. An additional set of concepts that had a dramatic impact on me can be found in Module 5, specifically from Chapter 7 of the text regarding income and labor market inequality. The concepts in these chapters regarding the idea of inequality of wages found in the concepts of the earning gaps found on page 169 and the wage gap found on page 170. Both of these concepts reminded me of something I learned while studying management, that being equity theory. Oftentimes, when two people are doing the same job and one of them is paid more, the one that is paid more often seeks to make the work fair or equal by either doing more work, doing work for the other one being paid less, helping the other one to obtain a raise, or helping to reduce the other's workload in an additional way. This is partially why employers seek to prevent people from knowing what others are paid, in addition to making it harder for people to additional for the reason that it makes it harder for people to negotiate for better wages. These concepts had a dramatic impact on me because they helped me to realize that hiding what we are paid, as well as the other issues that exist in society, allows for gross inequality to occur and to grow between us. Overall, this module will likely lead me to working to be more aware of what my coworkers are making in order so that I might help prevent further inequality when it comes to wages, at the very least. As for key ideas from the text that has helped to expand my idea of race, I believe that the most dramatic one came up in the The Power of an Illusion video we watched during the very first week of class. This video helped me to figure out the fact that race lacks a genetic basis and instead is a concept that exists only within society. By understanding the fact that race lacks a genetic basis, I was able to realize that much of what I had come to learn regarding the stereotypes of race and my perception of them being better in certain areas was just simply untrue.